Hello, everyone. You are all welcome to this webinar by the Association of Future African Neurosurgeons in our scientific writing course. Today, we are going to have Dalle Ulrich presenting on plagiarism. But before we move on to his presentation, we are going to present ourselves. I am Ivan Zolo. I am a final year medical student at the Faculty of Health Sciences, University of Buea, and I'm also the president of the Association of Future African Neurosurgeons. It's a pleasure to have all of you here tonight. Next on the list, present ourselves, we have Darwin Sishimba. Please, can you unmute and present yourself? Probably stepped away. So next is Musakanya. Please, can you unmute and present yourself?
Hello, good evening. This is Musakanya Shitoroka from CBU 5th year medical student, Zambia. Yeah.
It's a pleasure to have you. Okay, Darwin says he can't present himself. There's noise around him. So Darwin is a medical student in the Copperbelt University in Zambia, and he is also the head of the operation team in AFAN. So next, Olaoluwa Ezekiel, please can you present yourself? All right, probably Olaoluwa to ask issues. Olaoluwa Ezekiel. Okay, go on. Okay, so Olaoluwa Ezekiel is a medical student from the University of Ibadan. So next is Tunde. Please, Tunde, can you unmute yourself and present yourself?
All right. My name is Tunde Amabatokin. I'm a fourth year medical student at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to have you. Next is Dr. Daniel Safre. Please, can you present yourself?
Hello everyone. I'm Dr. Daniel Safari Terania from Democratic Republic, an academic assistant at Official University of Bukavu. I'm glad to be here with you this evening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel. It's a pleasure to have you. And then we have Dr. Ulrich. Please, can you present yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Ulrich Sydney. I'm the founder and president of the Association of Future African Neurosurgeons. I'm very happy to be here today.
It's a pleasure to have you. Thank you. And then Dalle, please, can you present yourself and then move on with your presentation? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Rich, I'm a medical student at the North Ossetian Medical School or Academy in Russia. I am equally a research fellow and the head of communication of AFAN. So today we'll be talking about plagiarism, and I'm really sorry to be very late today because I'm still in school and I was not aware to be so taken again today. So the outline will be to have an introduction and then try to define plagiarism and then have some different forms of plagiarism. And we could see how to avoid plagiarism and the consequences of these acts, and then a small conclusion. So in introduction, we can say that plagiarism is a violation of scientific integrity, and it is against the principle of intellectual honesty, according to which all members of the scientific community must acknowledge the source of ideas, words, and data used in their own work. So plagiarism is thus considered as a serious act of scientific misconduct and can have grave consequences in scientific career. So according to Kimazevsky, plagiarism is defined in general terms as taking credit for the creative expert of scientific work of someone else. So I got this definition of plagiarism, which is presenting someone else's work or ideas as your own by incorporating it into your work without proper acknowledgement. And this definition equally applies to every published or unpublished material, manuscript, printed or electronic form of work. So plagiarism is even ideas can be considered, even if you take the idea of someone, it can be considered as plagiarism. So these are the different forms of plagiarisms. I got direct plagiarism, which is a word-to-word copying of someone else's work, partially or full, without acknowledgement or quotation marks. And there's equally plagiarism of ideas, which is just picking out the idea of someone. Maybe he has not yet written it down, but he has maybe shared the idea with you, and then you decide to take it and use it without giving him the acknowledgement he deserves. So that is also plagiarism. There is montage plagiarism or mosaic plagiarism, which occurs when you borrow phrases from a source without using quotation marks or find synonyms for an author's language while preserving the same structure and meaning of the original text that you have taken from. There's equally self plagiarism, which is when your work has been already published, like you have your work, you have published it, and therefore it becomes citable. So you might be writing and you forget to cite it because you think, okay, it's my work, and then let me just write. But you need to cite it. That becomes a self-plagiarism. And there's miscollaboration equally, which at times involves unapproved collaboration between authors, like failure to give credit to assistants, um, equally when the collaborators are not they have not agreed on a certain number of things, and then one of the collaborators just breaks those rules, and it can be considered as a plagiarism also. There is equally unintentional plagiarism. Most of the times this one is when you neglect to cite your source, or you misquote your source, or you unintentionally paraphrase a source by using similar words or group of words, sentence structures, without giving any acknowledgement to the person who first wrote it or who first discovered that. So, how to avoid plagiarism? I think this is the very important part of this topic. The first thing I would say is to apply or employ principles of good academic writing. Like that is the first thing to know. Like we have to know academic writing. That's why it is very important for all fellows, all scientists to attend academic writing schools or programs. We equally have to know our work and use our own words. Like you have to develop, excuse me, you have to develop our own creativity. Allow ourselves enough time for research. This is a very, very important part too, because at times we don't want to like take 6 months for a research or 1 year. I know that researches that take more than 1 year, more than 2 years, because they take time to have really enough time to research, to create, to have intrinsic thoughts and all this. So we equally is important to keep carefully track on our sources. Like each time we get a source, we need to like note it down, keep it somewhere, register it so as not to forget and not to fall in unintentional plagiarism. Equally, we can use online plagiarism checkers. Like I know there are some that are free, but there are also some that are that you have to pay for them. But it is good to try to use these plagiarism checkers to avoid to be unintentionally a plagiar. Equally, it is absolutely important to make it clear who is speaking when we are in our writings. Like, am I the one speaking or is it someone else speaking? Like my introduction, you read in the definition I gave, I quoted like the definition. Like that is one of the examples. Equally, it is important, like this is already good academic writing, credit and cite sources correctly. It is also important because if it's not correctly cited, it will be very difficult to know what we are talking about. We have to quote accurately and sparingly, paraphrase and cite, and equally we need to summarize. We should not just patch and write, but try to summarize. Then I would just go far here to give us like some examples on how to paraphrase, quote, and summarize, because this is all what it's about. To avoid plagiarism, I think this is the main core. We need to know how to paraphrase, we need to know how to quote, we need to know how to summarize. So, quoting, paraphrasing, and summarizing is very essential to avoid uh, 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 plagiarism. Like it permits us to really well integrate authors' work in our own writing and to acknowledge them everything they deserve. So all information needs in-text citation, and the source of the information must be acknowledged in in our reference list. Always, never forget. Even if we had in-text the citation, it's always important to put it also in the reference list. So what is quoting all about? Quoting is using the author's text words directly as they are, like we just pick it as they are. And short, there are two types of quotes, like short quotes, which is like a part of the sentence, which are usually less than 40 words. And there's block quotes, which is a longer one, a longer format, which is greater than 40 words that we insert in our writing. How do we do to properly quote? All quotes should be introduced, explained, and commented in the work. In-text citation, including page numbers, must be provided. An equally full reference list should be included at the end of the work in our reference list. Equally, paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is simply the alteration of an original passage into our own work. Completely transform the borrowed text, allows always without changing the author's idea. Like we take the word, we try to transform it to we try to say what the author is saying, but in our own words, but the idea remains the same. And usually it's having the same length as the original passage. So how to paraphrase properly? We need to rearrange and structure the sentence by using our own words, as I said, and use different vocabulary and then cite the author directly. What about summarizing? Summarizing is just extracting the important points from a text and rewriting them in our own words in a shortened form. So this time summarizing will be like shorter than the original, slightly shorter than the original text. So how to summarize properly? We need to look for the key informations, and then in each paragraph try to locate the topic sentences, which is often the first one, and then decide what is the main point that of that paragraph, and then we can just try to list the key points and include the main ideas of the text. So I just took some examples here. This is an example of quoting. We can just see the original text. There are two ways to become wealthy: to create wealth or to take wealth away from others. The former adds to society, the latter typically subtracts from it, for in the process of taking it away, wealth gets destroyed. A monopolist who overcharges for his product takes away money from those whom he's overcharging, and at the same time destroys value to get his monopoly price. He has to restrict production. Here we are quoting, so we just take a part, as I explained, take just a little part of the original text and quote it and give the reference. Like we can say, of the two ways to become wealthy, creating wealth adds to society, whereas taking wealth away from others typically subtract. You see, we have quoted it, like really put in quotes, typically subtracts from it, from in the process of taking it away, wealth gets destroyed. And that is what I was explaining later. Like quoting, we have to try as much as possible to to comment, to have a little comment on what will be quoted and try to explain it. So another example is the example of paraphrasing. We said that paraphrasing is just taking in our own words the same thing that the text said and try to remain in the same idea of the author. So it's the same text. Sorry, it's the same text. Now we'll say creating wealth adds to society, whereas taking away the wealth of others distracts from it and destroy wealth in the process. For example, a monopolist overcharging for a product takes money away from the customer, but also destroys value, because in order to get the monopoly price, production has to be restricted. And we said that during paraphrasing, it is very important to always cite the author directly, as you can see here. So if we read it well, we'll understand that the paraphrase has just given us the main idea of the original text, and in different words, but when we read it, we have the same idea as when we read the original text. So that's an example of paraphrasing. Then last, an example of summarizing or a summary. I think we are all familiar with the word summary, and we are all familiar with summarizing because all of us, like in school, we usually do summaries of text and all the like. So summary is just trying to make a summary, as the word indicates, like a short form of the original text, pointing out the main points. Like here it's written, uh, Stiglitz suggests that creating world adds value to society, but that taking away the world of others distracts from it. He uses the example of a monopolist who overcharges for his product, resulting in loss of wealth for the customers, but also loss of value at the monopolist has to restrict production in order to charge the higher price. So we at times it is really difficult to know what is the difference between summary and paraphrasing, but we just have to bear in mind that paraphrasing is we just try to change some words, keeping the same and original idea of the original text. But summarizing is like short, is we try to do a shorter form. We rearrange the structure and then we give a shorter form of the original text, but keeping the main ideas. Like we are just pointing out the main ideas that are really that important. So, what are the consequences of plagiarism? In fact, the consequences of plagiarism are so numerous, and I just wanted to keep it in a in a bulk. Like it is a serious offense which can lead to severe sanctions, all kind of sanctions. Just imagine you are a research fellow in I don't know, you have a grant, something like that. It can make you to lose the grant. Equally for journals who accept writings which have been plagiarized or where there is plagiarism, it can reflect negatively on the journal because the journal will not be considered so serious. I think normally when you submit to a journal, they pass it through a plagiarism checker to be sure that there is no plagiarism. So that is also a consequence. Equally, it is true that it can lead to revoking of the previous works. Like even if it's maybe your first time to have a plagiar, it will be very difficult to accept your previous works. Like they will start questioning you, like maybe the other works also were plagiarized and all these things. And equally, it can ruin your reputation. We know very well that as a researcher, we are building a kind of network, we are building a kind of reputation. And then for someone who is considered like a plagiar, it can just destroy all what he has been building for a long while. So in conclusion, we just say plagiarism remains a real problem in the scientific world and it can be intentional or unintentional. So it is very important for researchers to be very, very careful when writing to avoid plagiarism as it may lead to severe consequences. Thank you very much for listening. These are the references and thank you.
Thank you so much, Dale, for that fantastic presentation. Thank you very much. You could really see that you took time to prepare your work and you mastered what you were speaking about. So thank you so much. And I wish just as a comment, I would like to say plagiarism is a very important aspect in scientific research because if they identify or if somebody realizes that maybe you are plagiarizing somebody's work, the credibility you had falls apart immediately. So we should really take care not to fall into such practices. And at times, most people you might not notice that you are actually doing some sort of plagiarism. You might do it innocently, but you should that does not mean that you should not be aware that it exists and that it is detrimental. So always make sure that your work is original. Always make sure that you acknowledge when maybe you are trying to not use, but when you're trying to speak about somebody's idea, you acknowledge the person, you let the person, you let the scientific world know that you are not the person who came with the idea initially, as Dalle rightly said during his presentation. So it's very important. And I've seen this is a story. I've seen a student in my university whose thesis got rejected because he actually plagiarized somebody's work, like it was a copy and paste of somebody's work. So it is very important. Thank you very much for taking your time to come up with this fantastic presentation. So let me check if you have any questions for you in the comment section. Fantastic. I'm just saying congratulations up and down, and that's really good. So I'm going to ask Dr. Ulrich if he has a comment for Dalle and for us. Please, Dr. Ulrich.
Well, thank you very much, Zolo, and thank you, Dalle, for a really good presentation. Um, and I want to take the moment to equally thank Darwin for putting this together. Darwin has been doing a great job organizing these sessions, and obviously, thank you to everyone who's been attending. And equally, I shouldn't forget Chikebere, who's been designing all the posters. It was a really great presentation, had all the information in it. Perhaps what I can add is just a more practical perspective of why you shouldn't do this. So first of all, like Dalle said, plagiarism is scientific misconduct. Okay, you you need to understand that it is scientific misconduct to do not plagiarize someone's work. Like it was said, it can be ideas, it can be words, it can be don't pass someone's work as though it was yours. But equally, really want to stress the self-plagiarism thing. I really want to stress that. I know Dalle spoke about it. So self-plagiarism is one of the things I think a lot of people fall into very often, where what happens often is that someone will work on a project and then submit it to one journal and then submit it to another journal, or have one abstract submitted to 3 conferences. Do not do that. If you've submitted to one journal, you need to wait to get a response. And if they don't accept the project, that's when you can submit to another journal. Same goes for conferences. Otherwise, it's considered self-plagiarism. You need to be careful because all journals and a lot of conferences actually use plagiarism checkers to make sure that you haven't plagiarized the work. So please be careful with that. As to the consequences of plagiarism, I just wanted to share this with you here. So if you go on PubMed, what you'll find is you can find some articles with this word here, retraction. So for whatever reason, you had some kind of scientific misconduct. If you have a scientific misconduct, what happens is, well, the journal says you had scientific misconduct and they let the entire world know. So they don't delete the article, but they put this. So on PubMed, you can know that these authors had this sanction, I would say. So their publication has been retracted, and this will go a long way to jeopardize your credibility, like Dalle said and like Zolo said. So as you can see here, here is a retraction note of an article, and you can clearly tell, it clearly tells us for what reason this has been retracted. I mean, just don't do it. Don't feel like you can do a little thing and then you will get away with it. Just don't do it. If you even check, there's this other thing called Retraction Watch. Retraction Watch. Yeah, they have. Well, so let's take COVID for example. Because of COVID, everybody was publishing their experience on COVID. And if you come on Retraction Watch, You can find all the retracted papers concerning COVID, right? And you can have like reasons for which they were retracted. So there's obviously falsification of data that is often mentioned, but it's equally plagiarism. Um, Another really important thing for you to avoid plagiarism, even of ideas, is for you to do your due diligence and actually read the existing literature. The more you read the literature, the more likely you are to know about what is out there and not attribute something to you when it wasn't your idea. Please, please, please do not do that. Really, thank you so much, David Dalle, for a really good presentation, straight to the point, giving the really key, essential elements. I think there's a question here for you, so I'd rather I'll just yield the floor so you can answer the question from Tunde.
Uh, all right, thank you very much, Dr. Ulrich. So Tunde has a question for the presenter. He's asked, what are some of the plagiarism checkers that can be used? So Dale, please, can you?
Hello. Yeah, like the plagiarism checkers that I use, like the one I use is Turington. I don't know if I'm spelling it well, but that is the one I use. Now, for others, I don't know which ones are free plagiarism checkers because I'm just new in the research world, so I cannot have exactly all the types of plagiarism checkers. I think Dr. Ulrich knows all of them because he has been using them for a long time. So I don't know other ones. I really don't know other ones. But there is Plague Scan also that I remember. There is Plague Tracker that I remember also. There is Plagiarism and Copy Leaks. Those are some I know, but I don't know. I cannot know all of them. So I don't know if I've helped to give some.
Thank you. So I don't know, Dr. Ulrich, please, can you help us with some of the plagiarism checkers? Free. I mean, some plagiarism checkers that are free and can be used by anyone.
Yeah, I mean, he has cited a lot of plagiarism checkers. There are a lot of resources out there today. Just you go on Google and then free plagiarism checker. That's it. Some of the applications, although they might be subscription based, they will tell you, okay, if you want to check the text for plagiarism, you have a maximum number of words you can use. So you cannot just paste your entire manuscript. You probably have to go one paragraph after another. Others will be like, we can help you do that, but only a certain number of times. So you register and maybe you can check for 3 documents, and after that you cannot use it. So I would just recommend going on Google and just searching plagiarism, free plagiarism checker, so that because there's so many of them, there are hundreds. He has cited the most important ones.
And yeah, thank you. And I think Grammarly also has a plagiarism checker. I mean, plagiarism detection section, but I don't know if it's available for the free package.
No, it isn't available for the free
No,
package.
Yeah, exactly. Grammarly's plagiarism checker is not available via free package. So no.
All right. So thank you very much for your comments and your questions. I'll take time just to introduce. Wait, I think we have. Okay, no. Okay, we have no other questions. So I'll just take time to thank everybody for coming and for following the scientific writing course we started with some few weeks ago. Today was the last presentation on the scientific writing course, so we are closing the course, and I would like to say it is one of the courses that is having a lot of views. Presentation from the scientific writing course is having a lot of views on our YouTube channel. So it is fantastic. It shows the how members are engaged with the course. So thank you very much for being there. Thank you to the presenters. and special thanks to Darwin who came up with the idea and has been running everything in the background. So fantastic work, everyone.
Zolo, please, can you stop the recording? And I will just ask everyone to just stay back a little bit so we can have some kind of feedback on how this session has been and maybe what difficulties some people encountered and see how we can solve them.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.